Hello everybody, it's Dr. Katka here for our Medical Monday. Today is the 17th of May and we are here to talk about the brain and the mind. And they are obviously connected yet very separate because the brain is an organ that allows for the mind to function. And the healthier the brain, the healthier the mind. We do have our sunset musings going today. I had to hide a little bit. I'm kind of on the edge of a cliff here. So if I fall down, then, just kind of get off by yourself. But the sun is right over there. It's really bright. So I will show you shortly. For right now, I try to hide from the wind a little bit. So the brain. The brain is quite an organ. As we know, it is a very soft organ, so it has to be enclosed in a hard skull, right? Have you noticed that the organs that are actually at a higher function for life are soft yet covered, just like the heart and the lungs, excuse me, are covered by the ribs. So they are protected. The brain itself is not only protected by the skull, but it's protected from the overall body by the blood-brain barrier. It's a very important barrier that allows only certain things to go into the brain. That's what protects the brain. It's meant to protect the brain from harm. The brain, for example, is an organ that requires high amount of sugar. It also requires high amounts of cholesterol, a lot of other nutrients. But it's important because the brain is one organ that actually cannot make its own cholesterol. What does brain need cholesterol for? This is so important. Every single cell in the body is enveloped by, it's basically a cell wall that's composed of many proteins, many other structure, but the base of it is actually cholesterol molecule. So most of the organs can make their own cholesterol, brain cannot. So the one thing that I'm going to start off right off the bat is when we take cholesterol medicine, it really harms the brain big time. Lipitor is one of the number one selling drugs, making billions of dollars. And my goodness, is when we look at Lipitor and statin drugs, not only because they stop the production of cholesterol, they also stop the production of coenzyme Q10, which is the number one thing for the heart. And I was asking what's going to be our next organ, and it looks like it's going to be the heart. It's the one that popped up for our next Monday. But the idea is that by taking cholesterol medicine, we're supposed to prevent heart problems, right? However, we're taking out of the game one of the main nutrients that the body can actually create, which is coenzyme Q10, by taking this drug. And then number two, what we're doing, we're stripping the brain of one of the most important substances, which is cholesterol, that it needs for brain function. And oftentimes, this is not proven, but if you look at the studies, a lot of memory loss, dementia could be actually traced back to high amounts of these medications. So just kind of on the side, cholesterol medicine is one of the easiest medicine to get off of. It's one of the safest to get off of, and it's one that I highly encourage us to get off of. That's a whole different topic. We'll get back to it. But if you have any questions, please call me. It's that important for our brain. So besides that, a lot of other medications can actually harm our brain. And what happens is the blood-brain barrier becomes more penetrable under certain circumstances. Unfortunately, a lot of chemicals allow for the blood-brain barrier to open. A lot of pathogens allow the same, such as mycotoxins and fungi. And what happens is once there is substance in the organism which is not supposed to be there in the first place, like, you know, mercury from dental fillings or Lyme disease or you know, mycotoxins. It opens up this blood-brain barrier and it opens it up to many other things. So our brain becomes easily inflamed and easily sick. There is such a thing as systemic inflammation. We've all heard about it. It affects the whole body and unfortunately affects the brain as well. And it could present as simple as, you know, forgetfulness, as anger, or as anxiety. I've spoken, I don't know the date, but if you look at that Sunset Musings, we have done a lot of talk about some of these chemicals actually being the cause for mental illnesses, meaning so much easier to have anxiety, so much easier to have depression, so much easier to be angry and be unable to use the frontal cortex to control our emotions from the higher human state, which is what I'm talking about. Healthy brain is what allows for healthy mind that has a say-so over, oh, okay, I'm gonna make this decision and I'm gonna follow through. I'm not gonna beat myself up. Oh, okay, this is actually just not as bad as it looks like. I don't have to be so anxious about it that it's out of control. I don't have to explode over here, somebody making a mistake, even though I told them 3 times. It's the health of the brain actually determines the health of our mind. And so that's why it has always been difficult for me, where we focus on positive thinking and make sure we have positive thoughts and make sure, you know, we think positive thoughts because we're creating our life. And it's like, oh my goodness, it is almost impossible if my brain is inflamed, if I have a pathogen happening that's inflaming my brain, or if I have some heavy metals in there. It's virtually, as I said, the frontal cortex kind of gets taken out of the picture a little bit. And what that means is our lower brain centers take over. Those are the ones that try to keep us safe and protected, right? And that's where the fear comes in. So it's a whole different picture. So I don't want somebody to just think, let me see if I go down here, because I'm gonna get a cramp in my leg here. Standing. So can you still see me? No. Okay, I'll try this way. Hang in there. Is that good? I'll try this for a second. But it's really important that we start thinking about mind and mind health and mental illnesses. If we start thinking about that as part of brain health. And what I mean by that is, let's look at our brain and let's support our brain, not just take medications for, hold on just 1 second, you guys. Sorry about that. He's gonna go down on the bike. This is fun. I'm doing brain on top of a mountain over here. Ah, my goodness. There's a few people in there, so I think you can hear them, so I apologize. It's a little bit distracting, so I have to use my mind right now and really focus on what I'm trying to say, because I feel like it's distracting for you guys. But I'll be louder and I'll take over, all right? So the quality of our health is what determines the quality of our mind. And it's really important that we realize that. So not just when I am losing memory, not just when I am, forgetful and I have headaches, do I look into the brain health. I want to do that for mental health. So what I mean by that is, yes, we treat depression. Let's say high dose niacin, a lot of amino acids really help with depression. You know, we have herbs for anxiety. We have herbs, a lot of like the lemon balm and even valerian root and a few things like that. We use that for anxiety. So we use natural substances to help us support these quote-unquote mental illnesses, but underneath we really need to look at the brain health. And number 1 is going to be decreasing inflammation. So if you look at, there's a lot of brain foods. So yes, brain foods are important, and we'll get to that, but what is really important is decreasing the inflammation, calming down. If I know there's any chronic pathogens, I gotta calm those down, meaning I gotta really support the immune system to, like the Lyme disease, all those neurotoxic pathogens. And then what we need to do, once again, we're back to, everything comes down to the alkaline acidic. Brain functions as any other organ much better during alkaline environment. I should have let you see this. He's too fast. He's on this bike, like shooting down this hill. So I don't know if you saw him behind me, probably not, but always like, has my heart stopped seeing that? But his brain is focused. So what happens is, the healthier the mind, the healthier the brain, the healthier the mind, and vice versa, because when we have stronger mind, we can make better choices. So what are the important things for brain? So yes, foods are really important. Number one would be high alkaline foods. Once again, I'm going to say this is across the board alkaline foods. So green fruits and vegetables, so mostly green. The idea about, if somebody is really, really ill, I haven't really spoken about that much. We will need to start a little slowly when we're alkalinizing the body, so we don't, create this, out of being really acidic, this highly alkaline environment. It's going to push a lot of toxins out, so we go slow, but alkaline. Number two, we take some anti-inflammatories, preferably, turmeric is really good for the brain. Green tea as well, organic green tea, or we can take green tea in capsules, very helpful. If you look at the brain foods, they talk about coffee and cacao. It's more a stimulant in the blood flow. Chocolate, so instead of chocolate and coffee, we literally get some nutrients through raw cacao. We do the herbs, as I was telling you about the maca, we add the raw cacao to it. We do some of the mushrooms, like reishi mushrooms, lion's mane, those OM company, OM, they have actually packages of different mushrooms together as powders. They are delicious and they are so good for our brain. The other thing is healthy fats. This is once again a whole topic of its own. I have spoken to you. This is Deb. Hi, Deb. Oh my gosh. Deb, she has done testimonial for us. You can go on our website, and every time we do a treatment with the ozone or the hydrogen peroxide or something that actually helps to calm down inflammation, she feels so much better, right, Deb? So focused, and yeah, because when we calm down the inflammation, the brain is really, really super energized, really is the word I'm looking for. So to go back to the foods, we really need to be careful with fats, and the trouble with that, we're all told take essential fatty acids, like in a fish oil. We are told we need a lot of high fat food for the brain. Yes and no. So what happens with fat, we need to be careful, because if we take fat out of its original, let's say we take nuts and we grind them, right? Or we shell them and then we pack them, they're exposed to oxygen, sunlight, and they get oxidized. Well, that means they get rancid. So the oils in the nuts and a lot of the fats that we use, including the fish oil, get easily rancid. So we really need to be careful to either, if we eat meat, have some really clean fish with low mercury levels, like cod and salmon and sardines. You can make a little sardine paste or something like that, make your own. If we are, and eggs are also a good one. If we are vegan, again, needs to be clean, preferably from a farm, or the Vital Farm are really clean eggs. If you're buying it, you see I'm falling over here. Yeah. If you're falling down, if you are buying eggs in the supermarket, you gotta get really super healthy ones. So that, and then if we are a vegan or vegetarian, what we use is we use nuts. But the best thing is, can we get nuts that we need to shell, so we have them very fresh? That would be the preferred thing to do if we can. If not, get them as fresh as you can and freeze them. But the second best thing is actually flaxseed. Flaxseed, again, do not get ground one because that's already rancid. Get whole organic flaxseed, get a coffee grinder and grind your own as you go and put it into anything. Put it in your shake, put it in your, a little bit of applesauce or apple juice. It tastes really good. Do not expose it to too much heat, where we can even make a little, if we get a fresh almond butter, we can make almond butter with some flaxseed and a little bit of honey. Oh, it's delicious. And then we can even, I'll put a little bit of cacao on the edges, but that's a whole different story here. So some foods for the brain are, again, it's going to come down to nutrients, antioxidants, and superfoods. So next one, besides all the greens that I was telling you about, the turmeric, the green tea, all that, next one goes, I'll show you. They're always so fast. The next one would be blueberries. We talked about that shake from Medical Medium in the morning, the heavy metal smoothie. That would be so superior for the brain because it has high amount of wild blueberries. It has some greens like the barley and the spirulina. It has a little extra cilantro, which helps to pull the heavy metals, and then some dulse, which allows for the CV. Superior shake for the brain. So if anybody doesn't know about that, just go Medical Medium and the heavy metal smoothie. It's really good. The banana just makes it taste really good. Some people put the orange in there if they want a little sweeter. You don't necessarily have to do that unless you live in Arizona and you have your own oranges, then of course go for it. So that's about that. I'm going to show you the sun as it's setting. If you have any questions. Hi Deb, do you want to tell us how what I was saying about, oh, it's a little bit hidden over there. But it's setting shortly, and as it's setting, I'm just going to share with you. Let's see if I can do this real quick. I'm just going to share with you something about the mind and the brain. But the mind right now. So the mind is a powerful way that we actually live our life. We use our mind to interpret how our life is. We use our mind to make decisions, to follow through, and all of those. So the way to keep healthy mind, we talked about the 5 body needs. That's one way to do that. So we follow the sleep, we follow the breath, and do some breath technique. We can even include meditation in that and calming down the nervous system. We make sure the body eliminates, because remember, the more toxins get stuck in the body, the more we're stagnant and inflamed and plugged up. So we eliminate properly. We get the nutrients in, just like I was saying. And we include that tremoring vibration, and the reason for this, and this goes beyond exercise. So we share that over the last few days from 11th to the 15th. But the idea is the brain is a high electromagnetic field. Our whole body is, right? But the heart and the mind, the brain, are the highest. The heart is about 60 times more powerful than the brain. However, they are such highly charged, so there is a lot of electricity going on. So besides all the nutrients, we also want to plug into these vibrations, right? And allow for the vibration as well, as I was sharing with you about, because that charges the brain as well. So that's a beautiful one. And then the breath does the same thing, because you super oxygenate the brain. But what I was sharing with you a little bit while I think a couple times ago was the mind is very powerful, and we can use it for good, or we can use it for not so good. And in our world, unfortunately, we have been programmed a little bit more to be fearful and to focus on what's wrong, whether it's in the world or whether it's with our body, whether it's what's wrong with our organism, all these symptoms and everything. So we have been really used or taught to focus on the problem. The the power of the mind is that it magnifies, multiplies many times what it focuses on. So the reason I'm speaking about this is there's a way to use the mind for good. And what I mean by that is literally we have to consciously, I'm going to move this slightly because I want you to see this. See, I'm going to we have to consciously know what happens when we have a thought and it's a fear and we have been taught to have that thought. It creates like a highway in the brain. What that means, it's so easy for the brain to go from A to B. It's almost like, I'm going to protect you, I'm going to go down this highway, versus going down and focusing on the good. It's like this dirt road up the mountain, just like this. We have to really struggle to actually go that way instead of the highway, right? So the idea is that we become conscious of this, and every time so the mind is able to allow us to notice that we're having a thought. Remember the first thing I was saying is I saw this quote: we are to change our thoughts, but in order to change our thoughts, we have to know what we're thinking. So we start consciously noticing, like, what am I thinking right now? Louise Hayes, like, what am I thinking right now? What am I thinking right now? Okay, so we start noticing what we're thinking, and then we start consciously, it's like, okay, if I didn't have this thought, could I have this thought? So we have to work a little bit harder at climbing up the mountain at first, but by focusing on that path over and over and over, we actually create a highway of goodness over here instead of highway of trouble and struggle and fear. That becomes the dirt road, and we're gonna create a highway of goodness. So that is my goal. That is also the goal for our community. Like, the idea is we need to be exposed. I believe that we need to be exposed to what's available and what the body is capable of doing, and the mind and the brain and every other organ there is, and then we'll talk about. So I'm going to let you share the sun a little bit with me, and I'll read from Deb. I love ozone, and every time I do the detox at your office, I fall asleep right in the office. I know, because the electromagnetic field of the brain actually can settle down and reset into more. We go from the beta into the alpha waves, which is very healing. I've been able to go down on my seizure meds. Love it, Deb. Thank you for joining us, by the way. How is Idaho? Oh, miss you. Okay, so I'm gonna have you enjoy the sun for just a little bit, and then if you have any questions, feel free to post them. There's obviously so much more about the brain, but this was just a little tidbit. And what I would love to do is next Monday we shall talk about the heart. I think that'll be a great segue from the brain, and we'll connect the dots. And before we go, I would just love for you to just focus on your brain. Like, really bring your attention onto your brain, right? The organ in the middle of the head, right? And then realize that there is so much more to us, that there's part of us that's actually observing this body. There's part of us that's observing and is able to witness the brain inside the skull. And that part of us is the true conscious I. And that one is what literally we need to support and focus on and become again in love with. So I will leave you with that. Thank you so much for sharing the sunset. Have a beautiful rest of the day. Good night, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.